Okay, so National Preparedness Month, right? It's this month. Everybody's talking about it. What should it mean? Like, how should you think about National Preparedness Month? Um, the irony, by the way, is that a lot of states will do tax-free day for preparedness in May because the hurricanes come. So I would think May should have been National Preparedness Month because of the storms and the hurricanes. But that's me. Anyway, how should we think of that? What is it that we do, especially if you're new to this stuff? How do you approach it? If you're experienced, if you're a homesteader, you're already someone who's in a preparedness mentality, you definitely can simply increase. Hey, what's going on, farmer? You definitely, Canadian, good to see you. You definitely can improve, expand your food, your whatever, your flashlights, your backpacks. But if you're new, or if someone you know is new and they're like, well, okay, it's National Preparedness Month. What do I do now? Um, it's Friday Eve. Yes, it is Friday Eve. The biggest recommendation I can give someone, hey, Dan, good morning, is to start with the basics. Start with the most fundamental things. If you've not done this before, or maybe you did and you stopped years ago and you're like, all right, I got to start again. I'm going to reference something Hudson Valley said on Four Horsemen live stream and on one of his streams. And if you haven't followed Hudson Valley Prepping and Survival, you really need to do that. And the Livingston man, they were together. And he mentioned that they were in a convention. They were, and the guy teaching the preparedness class said for every 10 people, 6 of them aren't prepping at all. 2 are thinking about it, have looked into it, but haven't taken action. 1 is just starting and completely lost. And then you have like the 1 out of 10 who's actually taken action and is doing something. And he said even out of that 10%, maybe half actually have gone in depth into this kind of thinking and going down that little rabbit hole. If you're prepping, the first thing is don't panic, all right? That a lot of people buy and spend more than they should on stuff they don't need. Now, whether I have affiliate links or not, if what I'm talking about it doesn't work for you, don't buy it. If you can get a better price somewhere else, do that. So the first thing you should do is assess what are your problems. Hey, JD, what's going on? What is your most likely scenario? So I'll give an example. My adult daughter, who now is living with her husband, got a job out in Cali. They're in the mountains, if you will. And she sends me a picture of smoke in the forest. And I'm like, what's going on there? And then she calls us. She calls us a little while later. It was about 11 midnight when they woke us up. And we're like, what's going on? Why are you calling so late? And her response was, thank you, Connor. The response was, well, there's a fire 2 miles from the house, and they told us to evacuate the subdivision. And I'm like, oh, shit. I knew she was by herself because the hubs was traveling for business. And she said, no, I was good. She said, the minute I saw the smoke, I looked at the news. They said there was a little fire. And she said, I don't trust this. So she said she pulled her go bag. She looked at what was in there, repacked it, got harnesses on the dogs, put their little dog leash, the one you click into the seatbelt, had the dog leashes. She staged everything. She said, I got the valuable papers, the emergency money, the jewelry, da-da-da-da-da. Stuck a pistol under her jacket. And what she said, when the police car went through with the loudspeaker saying, we highly recommend at this juncture you leave the subdivision, she said, I was packed and gone in 15 minutes. But she said, I knew fire was a risk here. And so when I saw the smoke, I'm like, I'm going to execute my plan. So I think SoCal, the fire captain. Okay, so Connor, if you're in that part of the country, I'll tell you what, CAL FIRE's website is phenomenal. I would say it's as good as the Texas Hurricane Tracker but we're tracking different things, obviously. Hey, good morning, Dr. Prepper. Um, Evaluate what your risks are, right? It doesn't make sense if you live, like Connor said, in Southern California, you're not going to really get blizzards. You might get hurricanes. They're looking at Lorena right now, which is ironic because it's going to hit SoCal and then make this right turn and sit over West Texas and New Mexico and just beat us up for 4 days because it's supposed to stall. And we're in the desert, so when we get more than 2 inches of rain, everything floods. But storms, earthquakes, those are things California deals with. Texas, not so much the earthquakes, but we get hurricanes, we get bizarre hailstorms, our grid dies for no reason. You know, we have a different set of problems here. Before you go on any prep journey, even if you've already gone on one and you're like, oh, wait a minute, it's Preparedness Month. How do I look at this? How do I approach this? Look at rabid liberals. Look at your area. Battlefield faith is very important, and that should be an undertone. And actually, biblically speaking, there are examples of preppers, such as the 7 years feast and famine, the dreams that Joseph had. But in the bigger picture, in society, we do have gnarly bugs in Texas. Understanding what your risks are should inform what you do next. When I wrote the book, Defensive Preparedness, I actually have a whole section on geography. Now, who the hell talks about geology and geography for prepping? Well, that's relevant. When the Texas floods happened, I had lived in Houston. I'm now out west in Texas. So I've moved around Texas depending on where work took me. I know that central Texas, with all those valleys and the rivers, can flood very quickly. The people locally knew that. What happened was, it was 4th of July weekend. They had a lot of out-of-towners who would go there for vacation and really didn't understand the area they were visiting. And so when the flooding hit and basically they didn't know where to go or what to do other than get in their car and try and drive away. They didn't know what the routes were. They didn't know what would flood before another route. And a lot of people lost their lives, including 2 very dear friends of mine. And and their families. I mean, one teenager survived out of 2 couples. 2 families were there. 1 teenager survived. They found her 15 miles downriver. I kid you not. They found this kid 15 miles downriver from where she started. So a farmer, wife and I are going to take inventory of winter outdoors. Right, now where you live, blizzards and freezes are a big deal. We get them in Texas, but not like you get up north. That's a big deal. Vision Preparedness, one of the 4 horsemen in our recurring chats, he spent all weekend with his son and his wife. The guys were cutting wood and she was inventorying other items, canned goods, batteries, whatnot. Understand what is truly a risk in your area. Remember, when you say SHTF, you know, shit hit the fan, it doesn't have to be Godzilla. It doesn't have to be an apocalypse, right? It could be a bad flood, like what happened to my friends. It could be an earthquake, happens in California, happens on the coast. It could be a forest fire, like what happened also in California, happens in Texas too. We had fires in Oklahoma not too long ago. Any of these things, if they burn your house down, or you know, your work building where you work gets destroyed, well, that's a personal SHTF. So think in those terms. When you go and buy something, you say, okay, I'm going to buy Readywise meals, or I'm going to buy whatever. Can I also use this for other reasons? Right? Readywise is great, right? Nutrient survival. There are a lot of great products out there. Those are great for emergencies. You know what else they're great for? Travel. They're great for camping. They're great for when you're feeling sick at home and you're like, I don't want to go to the store because I feel awful. So I'm going to open up this pre-made soup, put hot water in it in the pot, and I don't have to drive anywhere. So, hey, Moonsprout. So people ignore them. We get flash flood. See, Moonsprout, and that's another problem, is the overuse of alarms will make people immune to them. So you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt. But again, before you go on any preparedness journey during this National Preparedness Month, sit down and just write down on a piece of paper, if that helps, what happens in my area. Do we get fires? Do we get floods, earthquakes, tornadoes? Do chupacabras come out of the woodwork? I mean, I'm being facetious about the chupacabra, but I've never seen one. But point being, understand what actually happens in your area and then prep around that. Start there and then expand and say, oh, well, I have food now, I have water, I have a bag with all my emergency stuff, my truck is ready to go, I know how to pack my dogs quickly. What else can I prep for while I'm doing this? Oh, well, you know what? I want a generator now in case the power goes out. Maybe I want to get a better backpack because I walked with my bug out bag and it sucks and it hurt my back, so I'm getting something new. You start growing from there. So yeah, and we're expecting flooding. So you might see a whole bunch of videos from me this weekend about stuff flooding. Either that or the air show. We have a B-29 bomber from World War II supposed to be at our air show this weekend. Or we're getting flooding. We don't know. The air show may be canceled if we have a hurricane sitting on us. By then it'll be a tropical depression and just peeing on us for 4 days. So pack the dog. She sees the car, she's trying to get in. Yeah, well, mine do too, but mine are small. And hence they have that harness because it has a handle. And so my Corgis are kind of like a Corgi suitcase. I just pick them up by the handle and into the car they go. And I have those seat belt connectors, so each of them gets a little leash. So all 4 of them would sit in the back seat and everyone is attached, because what I don't want is a dog panics and comes into the driver's area and now I have a Corgi's butt in my face while I'm down the highway, right? Because that'll cause a shit hit the fan, because I'll crash. But they are the Corgi case. I need to do a video of me loading them in the car, because my wife, she'll sit there and just laugh at it. Because they'll line up. They know they're going somewhere. But they're too small to get in. Except Bentley can do the jump. The little ones can't. So I got to suitcase them in. But understand your area. Understand what the risks are. Start there. And if you really aren't sure, while you do your homework, go with the real basics. Get one of those stupid Walmart tubs that you get for $7 and put 2 rolls of toilet paper, a couple of MREs, a flashlight, ponchos, 2 small backpacks, and maybe inside a sealed like plastic envelope, something waterproof. You could put copies of emergency papers, photocopies of your driver's license and passport. And now you have your 24-hour box of stuff in case shit happens. And then sit down and evaluate. Don't spend a bunch of money, because I know it's going to happen. Some creators will be like, oh, you don't click this link, you're going to die. No, don't. As Hudson Valley says, we're all going to die at some point, right? Understand, hey, Auntie, the plastic footlockers are great. I've also found ammo cans, the little 30 caliber cans that have the grommet. And make sure they have a grommet or else they're not waterproof. Those are great. Thrift stores are good. I'm finding a lot of little deals on Amazon lately. Wolf Tactical had their sling bags, which I did a little video on, $19. And it's good material. It's not like the crappy plasticky shit that you get in the kids' school bags. But look at what's in your area and then say, okay, what are my biggest risks? Okay, you're in Southern California, crime, earthquakes, and maybe some flooding, right? You're in Texas, you could get, depending on what part of Texas, you could get freezing up north, you could get hailstorms in the west side and flooding, and then in Houston, you get hurricanes. We don't get earthquakes very often. So I'm not prepped for earthquakes. I'm prepped for the things either that would happen to me or might happen to maybe my son down in Houston, or, my sister in another part of Texas. I'm prepping not just for me, but if I'm going to help someone else, am I prepped so that if I can make it to them, I can share some of that product with them. So folks, before you spend a bunch of money, before you get in a panic, hearing all the doom and gloom, just evaluate. Know your geology, know your geography, know your local demographics. Do you have high crime, low crime? Do you have gangs in the area? Right now, gangs are pretty much anywhere, so that's kind of a redundant thing. But kind of understand what goes on in your area. And yes, Watchmen, my daughter had to evacuate because of one, but then she wound up being able to go home, so that was good. That was a blessing. But understand your area, understand the risks, and start there. You get flooding a lot, like Louisiana gets a boatload of floods and hurricanes. Prep around flooding and being cut off from supply and losing power, and then be ready to bug out in case the flooding gets bad. If you live in Cali, earthquakes are harder because they come out of the blue sky, right? They just, ta-da, earthquake. But you can still apply a lot of the same methodology, have bags, have copies of emergency papers. I know one friend in San Francisco actually has a storage unit toward, I guess, Modesto, outside the city. So it's about 2 hours away from San Francisco. So he said his plan is to take what he can from home, bail from the city, go to Modesto, and he has a stash in a storage locker. He has it for business, but he has an emergency stash there. And then he knows he has a resource there, and then he can continue to Nevada or wherever. So think like that. Start understanding what the risks are. Now, the Watchman's pointing out a few bigger issues, right? The China, Russia, North Korea. Those would be larger SHTF variables, right? But if you start small and you start local, most of what you prep for a local issue can also be used for bigger issues. So think of it that way. When you buy anything, ask yourself, okay, I'm using it for this purpose. Can I also use it for something else, right? I have a gas mask. I don't know. You get a MIRA safety mask. Well, I have a mask, right? So in case of chemical weapons, but what if there's a forest fire? I can use it for that too. There's a fire in the house, I can wear it in the house. If I have to evacuate and there's been an earthquake and buildings are down and there's garbage and sheetrock in the air, like 9/11, I can wear the mask and protect my lungs from that. So there are other uses. So folks, hey, good morning, Devil Dog. So folks, hey, Rebecca Lynn, plan based on what's around you. Understand your local risks and then build from there. And don't spend a lot of money, don't panic, and make a budget. There's no shame in that. Actually, good financial decisions are part of being prepared, right? Because God forbid there is an emergency, but your credit cards have a low balance, you have available credit, you can buy that tire, you can get the car fixed. And now you no longer have an emergency because your vehicle works, right? That's the kind of stuff you need to think about. So folks, again, National Preparedness Month, everyone's going to be putting out content. Learn what you can, take what applies to you. If it doesn't apply to you or doesn't make sense to you, don't use that advice, reject it, or just, pass it over, and work with the things you fully understand. I gotta go. I had a meeting canceled, but now I do have to go to the next meeting. So you guys be good, be safe, be careful on the roads. A lot of people driving stupid because they're distracted and everyone's stressed out and they're making bad driving decisions. Hey, Food Forest, good to see you. You guys be careful, be safe, and I will see you all on my next video. You guys be good out there.